On Thanksgiving Day, many of us are going to gather with our families and our friends to celebrate this day. And for some of us, that is going to be a joyous day filled with family and great food and maybe even a good football game to watch. For others of us, gathering together with our great big loud families all under one roof may feel a little bit more like the nightmare before Christmas. I think that might be happening in our house. So yeah, families can get really complicated, but thank God for them. Where would we be without our families? Amen. And where would we be, honestly, without our parents? That's kind of the top of the line there. Where would we be without our parents? They are dedicated to us, and they're bent on teaching us how to be good, productive adults, well-behaved adults, and they prepare us to succeed in the world. Parents are our best source of good advice. So, I'm sure that some of you will be able to remember some of these, like, make sure that you always have your own money with you all the time. Now that little bit of advice served me really well when I was in high school, and I finally got that first date with my dream boat. And about an hour into that date, I found out that he wasn't nearly as dreamy as I had first thought. And so I had to call my mother and have her come get me. And had I not had my money with me, I wouldn't have been able to do that. Another good piece of advice that I got from my parents was never, ever, ever drink and drive. That usually came with the assurance that if you do drink, just call us, we'll come get you, no questions asked. Now, I never tested that, but I am certain that had I been silly enough to call my parents and tell them that I had been drinking, I would have run square into the wrath of God himself. When my mom was teaching me to drive, she told me, never, ever outdrive your nerve. If you're scaring yourself, you should probably slow down. She said that with white-knuckled grip on the dashboard and a look of utter terror on her face. I don't know what was wrong with her, but... Another good one that I didn't believe until many years later was that you really can be guilty by association. Amen. Perception is reality, so be careful who you hang out with. That little seed took a whole lot of time to find fertile ground and sprout. And of course, there is the standard that everybody has heard. Make sure you're always wearing clean underwear. Because you never know when you might wind up in the hospital. Maybe, though, the most useful piece of advice that I ever got from my parents, and who would ever have guessed it at the time, was this: sit up straight. Your posture tells people a lot about you. Posture really does tell a lot about you, maybe even more than we realize. I learned the importance of this little bit of advice from a boss I had who wasn't impressed at all with my posture. Being a typical American female, I don't like the way I'm shaped. So when I sit down, I tend to cross my arms across my tummy. And so I managed to aggravate him twice. He chastised me on 2 different occasions for being closed off and unapproachable because of the way I sat. Now, I'm still not convinced that he just didn't have too much time on his hands, but that's another story. So, even though it may be misread, our posture really does give other people information about us. Slouching teenagers, shy, bashful people, aggressive people, attentiveness, eagerness. There's body language and posture that goes with all of that. Our posture allows us to take the next step or the next action. Whatever comes next, we need to be in the right posture for it. One time my brother had come over for a visit, and we were sitting in my dining room, sitting on the kitchen chairs, just having a nice long visit. I have the best brothers on the planet. And so when we get together, we like to talk and be comfy, and we were. So he was sitting in one of those kitchen tables, and he had his legs wrapped around the outside of the front two legs of the chair. And he was sitting back in his chair, drinking a cup of coffee, just as comfy as he could be. Now, I don't know why, but something possessed him to hop up right quick and go do something. But his feet were wrapped around the front legs of the chair, so he popped up and fell flat. And being the good sister that I am, I laughed so hard I nearly fell out of my own chair. So if we want to stand up quickly, we have to make sure that we have both feet firmly planted on the floor. If we want someone to know that we're interested in what they're saying, or if we're just interested in them, we need to face them squarely and listen to what they're saying. If we're sideways or leaning back away from them, our posture is likely to tell them that we're really not all that interested or we're not paying attention. So posture matters. Now, in addition to our physical posture, we also can have a mental posture. When our mental posture is negative, we find fault, we focus on the downside of things, new ideas are met with a whole list of reasons why they won't work, and we're really good at placing blame if we're being negative. If we're positive, on the other hand, we find that we embrace new ideas and we expect things to be fun and successful. We see good in other people rather than focusing on their shortcomings. We're more accepting of what is. We're just more peaceful when we're positive. If we're open, if we have an open posture, we are eager to make new friends. We are approachable and friendly. We genuinely like and care for other people. We're outwardly rather than inwardly focused. I think that this was good advice. Good posture is important. I want to read this story to you from the book of Luke, chapter 17, verses 11 through 19. On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 lepers approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, "Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give thanks to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." That little bit of scripture is familiar and it's beloved. I love that story. I mean, how many sermons have you heard on that scripture through the years? It's just popular and it's familiar and it's comforting. But I have to ask, am I the only person that struggles just a little bit with that story? I mean, my dad had cancer. He had grown up in my hometown church and had been a faithful Christian his entire life. When he found out that he had cancer, he prayed and prayed and prayed. He had great faith, and he died anyway at 68, which was way too young. Why wasn't he cured like the lepers in that story? If all it takes is faith. The lepers in this story that we just read cried out to Jesus, believing that he would cure them, and he did. These men had been cast out of their families and out of their circles of friends, their homes, and even their places of worship. People were afraid of catching their disease. The only company they had was others like themselves, other diseased outcasts. Their existence was bleak, without the comfort of loved ones and without hope. But then Jesus drew near. This was their chance to be healed, their chance to regain all that they had lost. They shouted out to him to be cured, demonstrating their faith, and he healed them, all 10 of them. Can you imagine their joy and elation at their good fortune? All of a sudden, they could go home. They could go back to their families and friends. They could go back to their lives filled with love and acceptance and inclusion. In their joy, they took off at their fastest run so that they could get home as soon as possible. Who wouldn't? But then one of them stopped and turned around to look back at this man, this Jesus, who had just cured them and handed them back their lives. Forgotten was the world that he was racing toward just a second ago. He could not go another step until he expressed his profound gratitude. Jesus had just touched him and made him well. And this one leper fell at Jesus' feet, praising and thanking him from the very bottom of his soul. This Samaritan leper who was a foreigner and an enemy of the Jews. While this is a beautiful story, at the end of the day, somewhere down through the years, that man died anyway. He was always going to, and so are all of us. It's the life cycle, exactly as God intended it. We are born into an earthly life because God himself created us. He knit us together in our mother's wombs, and we will leave this world to take our place with Christ at God's right hand. It's all part of the cycle of life that God created and then safeguarded through Christ. So I think that this story that we read isn't about physical healing at all, where God inexplicably heals some and not others. I think this story is about good posture. When the one leper turned around, went back to Jesus, fell at his feet, praised God with a loud voice, and thanked Jesus, what was he doing? He was worshiping, wasn't he? And we know that because of his posture. When we come into a sanctuary, lift our voices in praise, get down on our knees, or lift our eyes and our arms toward heaven, we are worshiping. Amen. And everybody knows that.
Amen.
You can tell it by our posture.
Amen.
We are facing Jesus.
Amen.
We're turned around from the world and toward Jesus.
Amen.
We're focused on God.
Amen.
And doesn't that posture tell the world a whole lot about us?
Amen.
Thanksgiving is on Thursday. We have houses to clean. Some of us have long drives to make. We have turkeys and sweet potatoes and pumpkin pies to bake. And we have parades and football games to watch on TV. All of that is fun and healthy, and we should embrace every single lovely minute of it.
Amen.
But we also have to remember to have good posture. This day is about giving thanks for the abundance that we have been given.
Amen.
We have what we need to care for ourselves and to help care for those around us who are less fortunate. Our good posture has to be one of turning back to Jesus, dropping to our knees, praising God, and thanking Jesus for healing and saving us.
Amen.
Our parents told us to sit up straight because our posture tells people a lot about us. But more importantly, our good posture tells the world a whole lot about Jesus.